Continuing the story of Mel and Mel's Hole from just last Friday, December 20th, here is Art and Mel Waters on the best of Coast to Coast AM.
From the high desert in the great American Southwest, good evening. The moon out there is full, the night's still and cold, and it's going to be a very interesting program, and so I suggest you strap in, turn up the radio, and get ready. Coming up in a moment, a surprise visit from Mel Waters. That would be Mel of Mel's Hole fame. A lot of people said he was dead. Recently, I've had some communication from people who thought he was dead. Well, he's not dead. He's here tonight, and he's going to fill you in on, kind of what's happened since. Coming right up. Here from an undisclosed location, unless he wishes to disclose it, is Mel Waters. Mel, welcome to the program.
Well, hello there, Art Bell.
Welcome back to the program is more like it.
Well, thank you. All I'll say is I'm in my nephew's apartment.
Okay, that'll do.
Okay.
All right, Mel, what we need is an update, if you have one, to Washington, an update, of course, on the whole here in my state, Nevada.
Right. Okay. First of all, I'm not dead.
That's a good thing, Mel.
And I did have a very, very, very close brush with death back around Memorial Day.
Maybe that's where people got it.
But I am doing well, and I am not yet ready to eat the big green wiener yet.
All right.
Anyway, yes, I do want to bring people up to date and let them know how things are going.
All right, good. Where to begin?
Well, I'm going to talk to you about kind of where we left off in Nevada.
All right.
I think that would be. Is it Nevada or Nevada?
I say Nevada. I don't.
I wonder about that sometimes.
Just try either one. We'll answer to it. Whatever.
Anyway, the one in your state here.
Yes.
I told you that we had lowered a bucket of ice into the hole there in your state, and that
you don't want to tell us any more about where the hole is.
I think that might end up coming out here, or I think people will be able to discern where it is in your state.
All right.
I think a lot of people have got a very good idea, and I'm going to tell you that the location where the hole is at has been under helicopter surveillance almost I don't mean constantly, like 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
But there have been flyovers of that area.
Frequently?
Like frequently.
Yeah.
But there's been no contact with the Basques that are there, that are encamped around there.
That's pretty odd, considering the military cordon that was thrown around the hole in Washington.
Well, yeah, that is, and I've yet to discern how they were able to mobilize so quickly on that. That's still a great mystery for me.
Nevertheless, you said you were reminding us a bucket of ice.
Yeah, but one thing that when I said they have had flyovers of the hole there in your state, I was told something very interesting, and that is that from certain approaches to where the area that they're in,
yeah,
you can see the encampment of people. You could see the Basque if you're standing there, say, on the hillside, but you cannot see the flange around the hole. I told you that with this hole, there was like a metal collar.
That's right.
A flange around it. You cannot see that from a certain distance. You can see everything else, and the flange is huge. It's a very large metallic structure, that provides like a collar for this thing.
Mel, your opinion.
Yeah.
Does this hole go down somewhere near the center of the earth? I mean, how far?
Well, of course, people know what my experience with it was, lowering all that fishing line into it, and I'm absolutely certain that I got 80,000 feet of line into it, which is, 15 miles or so of line. That's a crazy thing to do, but I did. I'm just one of those people that are determined to get to the bottom of things.
Only you never did get to the bottom.
No. When I was at that level, that was my first contact with you. When I reached that point there, that's when I said, I better reveal what I'm doing to the audience to find out what am I dealing with.
Yeah.
And so this whole thing started. Well, let me tell you about what had occurred. We lowered that bucket of ice. We pulled it up there. We had a bucket of ice up there at the surface. That bucket of ice at the surface had melted completely. We brought up the bucket of ice from a depth of, I believe it was 1,000 feet. Uh-huh. We lowered it down 1,000 feet. We brought it up. The ice was unmelted. So we stuck it on the campfire there in the metal bucket to see if we could melt it. Well, the thing caught fire, as I said.
The ice caught fire.
Ice caught fire, was burning. And it was a kind of a strange fire, but it generated heat. I don't know. I still to this, well, I might be getting ahead of myself, but it must have been some sort of chemical reaction. Somehow the water was changed.
Yeah.
We actually touched the ice, and it felt like ice, but not cold. And when we came, that's when we took it, before we set it on fire.
Like ice, but not cold.
Right. I mean, it wasn't cold, and so what was going on here? So we lowered it, we put it in the bucket. Well, I told you that it caught fire, and they eventually one of these Basque fellows took the bucket of ice, set it in the back of his pickup truck, drove off, and took it home and stuck it inside of his wood stove.
Had the ice been put out?
No, it was just kind of,
Well, I mean, he had it in his vehicle.
He just had it in the back of his pickup truck.
You're trying to tell me it was burning while it was in there?
Yeah. Well, he wanted to take it home and put it in his wood stove and see if it would keep him warm.
Well, so he did that.
Yeah, well, the Basque are kind of crazy people. Are you in any way familiar with the Basque in general, or specific, or just kind of heard of them?
Well, no, of course I've heard of them, but I mean, no.
The Basque are very well known in your state. In fact, the university up there of Nevada at Reno has a huge section on the Basque.
I bet, yeah. Well, so he took it home. It's not that weird. I mean, it was burning.
Yeah.
Ice burning is weird.
Yes, and he took this home and set it in his wood stove, and it kept him toasty warm throughout the winter.
Throughout the winter, and for
you're
telling me this one piece of ice.
Well, what we did is in this metal bucket, we stuck in a bag of like 7-Eleven ice, the kind that you buy at the store,
sure.
ice cubes.
Yes,
that's what it was. That's what we put in there. Nothing else. Just the metal bucket lowered down into this hole. We get it and we stick it on a fire, and it's burning. Okay, so anyway, this goes on for quite some time, and he sets it in his wood stove, keeps them warm, and I imagine that today it'd still be burning or is burning. I have no.
The last you heard, it was still going?
Well, we're going to go to probably what Paul Harvey says the rest of the story here, because this is what I've been told.
All right.
He says, when you have a wood stove, and you're burning wood, you generally will put a kettle on top of that wood stove.
Yeah. And,
to have hot water for coffee and to humidify the air.
Sure, whatever.
It dries out the air terribly. Well, this Basque fellow, he just did just that there, and he noticed there that the air was, like, really, really dry. He was always thirsty, and his skin was, like, flaking. I mean, this was like, I don't know, he must have been living in humidity lower than what you face out there in the desert, and so... he's got this kettle up on top there, trying to humidify the air. And one night he notices that, I don't know, it might have been the angle of the light or just whatever it was, but the steam from the kettle looked like it was being absorbed into the stove. And we're not saying, like, through the vents or, through the door or whatever.
Wait a minute. The steam from the kettle, which would have been going up, would be coming back down and then absorbed by the stove.
Yeah,
right?
it was like dispersing and then coming around and just like, I guess the word to describe it is lingering around, but it looked like it was being absorbed by the stove. That's I think that's the best picture I can.
That's weird.
That is strange.
Of course, this is already really weird. We've got ice that's burning eternally so far, and that's, I can picture it.
Okay, so I mean, I want to be able to, because this is what I've been told, but I have absolute belief in, the person that told me this, and that this goes on. Anyway, the stove is out there, and it's producing heat, and this guy is real happy, and even though he's, like, real thirsty and really dry, and then one day this guy comes home, he goes out and does his thing, and comes home, and he notices that the stove had crashed through the hearth and through the floorboards of his cabin.
What?
It just, like, went right down. It just broke. I mean, it was kind of a flimsy cabin, but it was able to support the weight of his wood stove and his...
so now a stove with this eternally burning ice is now through the floor.
It's in the ground. It's actually on like the dirt. Maybe it.
Oh.
fell like about a foot into the ground at that point.
I wonder if this thing is going back from whence it came.
Well, that's what I want to know, and we're going to continue along with this here. But anyway, the stove is sitting down there. Now, this guy, you know, sometimes I wonder about these guys, but, you know, he's not too bright. So what he does is he patches up the stovepipe.
Yeah.
And so it connects to the chimney where, you know, the flue, all that stuff there.
Yeah.
And you know, he's kind of living in this cabin with this, stove.
You mean he's still using the stove?
Yeah.
He just extended the pipe?
Yes, that's exactly what he did. You know, he just kind of lowered it down there. And as far as I could tell, though, it doesn't give off any gas or any smoke, no smoke or anything.
He made no attempts to bring it back up to fix the floor and do it right, huh?
No, he didn't. You know, he continues to live with it, you know, and basically about, I don't know, a week, maybe 2 weeks later, he comes home, and the entire cabin has collapsed.
What?
Around the whole thing.
The whole thing?
Everything has collapsed around it. In fact, all there is around the side of the cabin is piles of wood dust. Wood dust.
Wood dust.
Wood dust.
So in other words, his cabin disintegrated.
It basically looked like all of the moisture that was in the wood had been sucked out of it completely to the point that it could no longer exist as wood.
Wow. Now this is pretty interesting because so far it's pretty consistent. That's for sure. This thing reabsorbed its own moisture. It absorbed so much moisture this man had terrible skin trouble. Still, he kept it going, and now he absorbed all. I get it, all the moisture out of the wood.
He had wood furniture in there, you know, his bed and a chair or whatever.
Yep. Wood
dust. You know, you could see the different colors of wood dust. And at that point, he abandons the cabin, gets the heck out of there.
Understood.
He says, hey, enough is enough. So he moves in with one of his brothers.
Yes.
And they were over there, and about a month later, he goes back to the cabin to show it to his brothers, and they find that the stove had sunk to, like, 5 feet into the ground.
This thing's on its way.
It's 5 feet into the ground, and it is still generating heat.
And still going.
And, you know, at that point, all the dust had blown away, and, you know, you got a few nails around there. And what you have is a rectangular hole, just a little bit bigger than a stove. So can you imagine a rectangular wood stove sinking into the ground, leaving its imprint? And there's a little bit of room around it, but not a lot. And he described that the hole that it made was also like really, 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 really smooth all around it. You think of a hole in dirt.
Like it's burning its way through. Like it's
melted into some sort of glassy type.
Maybe it's doing the same thing, and it's taking away all the moisture in the soil below it as it goes.
This is the point where the Basque fellow contacts me.
Okay.
And they have a way of getting a hold of me. And I say something that I probably shouldn't say on the air, but anyway... we
something like holy smokes?
Well, yeah, that would be it. Holy smokes. And then I did something which I thought I would never do.
What?
And that is I contacted one of the people that were my contacts when I was in Australia.
Okay.
Okay, I had a number, and I described the situation to this guy here. And he pretty much said the same thing that I said, holy smoke. And he tells me it's, like, really important that I tell him where the cabin was.
Of course.
And how to get to it.
Well, I mean, after all, Mel, this is, before it disappears from sight into a creation of a new hole, this is something that could be immediately researched.
Well, so I talked to the Basque, and all the land that I'm talking about is on public land. You know, so the cabin, you know, the guy's like a squatter out there, you know, out in the out in the boondocks. He's got a shack that, you know, if it burned down, he wouldn't care about it. He'd just put up another one, you know, a couple of feet away.
Gotcha.
But he decides, okay, well, there's no way to really trace me, you know, to here, so I'm not going to get any trouble. So we say, okay, we you know, I get back with this guy here. This is exactly where to find it, you know, tell him how to get there. And so at that point, there's a team dispatched to the site of the former cabin.
A team?
A team of people show up there.
Way to go.
And now this guy, this Basque fellow there, he's got a nice vantage point. He knows all the land around there. He knows where he can sit out there and squat and look around. So he's got a pretty good view of where his cabin used to be. So he's out there, watching what's going on.
Yes.
Now, he said he wasn't sure if they were military guys or what kind of guys they were. I would imagine that some of them had to be scientists of some sort. And, they're out there for a while, and shortly after that, there's like a bunch of heavy-duty construction equipment, cranes, and things that are brought out there.
Here we go.
Yeah. And then, and this is like, big stuff, super, super big stuff. But, he's up there and he's watching this, and the people down there at the cabin are really, like, struggling to get this stove out of the ground.
Yeah.
And at that point, I assumed that it sunk even deeper than it, than it was. And that last time he said it was about, like, 5 feet deep. So this thing was pretty deep out there. They keep on bringing it in heavier and heavier and heavier equipment, bigger cranes. They bring in multiple cranes. They're still, I guess, not able to get a purchase on this thing to lift it out.
Hey, Mel, I wonder if this is the way the holes got made in the first place.
I do not know what the mechanism here is.
Because so far, what you've described sounds like it's making a new hole.
Well, from that standpoint, it sure as heck does. And obviously this thing is sinking deeper and deeper into the ground, and they are, it's like a total, they're totally baffled with how to get this thing out here. I assume that when they're trying to bring it up there, that they're breaking off pieces of the stove because, it's made out of cast iron or whatever, and must be busting up there. That the thing is really heavy. Well, eventually what they do is they drop some chains into the ground, and then they pour some water in there into the ground.
Yeah.
and I don't know if this is what happened, but this is what I assumed happened. Is somehow the water and the chains and the metal all congealed together, kind of like held fast like glue to the structure and everything that was in the hole.
Yeah.
Well, eventually they were able to get this thing out of the ground and hoist it up, and they were using more than one crane at this point. Now, I don't know a lot about cranes, but usually they could pick up a lot of stuff. They had several cranes working on getting this thing out, so it must have weighed some huge amount.
God,
talking like
fascinating. Well, okay, so the weight alone would have broken it through the floor. The weight certainly wouldn't have dug the hole, though. Isn't that fascinating?
Yeah, and so they finally get this thing out of the ground using multiple cranes, the biggest ones they can get. This guy said these things were like monster cranes. They get it up, and they load it onto the biggest truck this guy had ever seen in his life. I mean, this was bigger than big, and they haul that thing away. It is like gone, it's over there, and so they just took the stove away. I don't know if he got a good look to see what the stove looked like, but they loaded whatever was in there, detached the chains from the hooks and stuff, and trucked this thing off.
All of this, in essence, just to get this burning ice, really.
That's what they got. But this guy here, as soon as I talked to him, he knew something was going down, and something had gotten, well, my impression was it had gotten, like, out of control.
And all of this just from something you lowered into the hole here in Nevada.
That is correct.
All right. Hold it. Once again, Mel Waters. Mel, Marilyn in Tulsa, Oklahoma asks, was there any sign of radioactivity? An obvious question.
I don't think these guys are capable of determining if that. None of the people have been around the hole in your state or the hole in Washington or this other site where the stove had gone into the ground had experienced any sickness or anything that I guess would,
be indicative of
anything that made them like truly sick.
Have you been back to our Nevada hole?
No, I have not, and the reason why is that I feel at this point I am people can follow me around, and I don't want to lead anyone there at this point.
Have you detected people following you?
Well, I'll tell you, some of the people that I was trying to find have found me. I mean, and I have not left a trail of breadcrumbs out there. But so
yeah, you're not an easy guy to find.
I'm not an easy guy to find. In fact, that is also my message to Charlotte, and that is that I'm not around because people badger me all the time, even though I don't have a nickel in my pocket.
Actually, I would be aware of those you refer to. Let's not talk any more about it.
Okay.
Listen. The whole in Nevada,
right.
Eventually, Mel, we've got to give scientists or somebody access to one of these things.
I have a feeling...
Before the bulldozers come in with the suits and the military uniforms.
This has been my discussion with the Basque over there, is that at this point here, it's time to basically come clean on all of this stuff here. Let someone from a university out there, they don't want, I mean, they're just there, you know. I mean, I can't see them profiting by it or anything. It's on public land. I mean, it doesn't belong to them.
A lot of people, of course, probably haven't heard this whole story, and I'll tell you now, Mel, we're going to take this segment, and we're going to repeat Mel's Hole 2 on Christmas. And so we're going to take the segment we're in right now, play it back then. So Merry Christmas.
I'm going to tell you something, Art, and that is, boy, I sure got a lot of heat about the sheep and that...
Yeah, you want to briefly tell that again very quickly?
Well...
It is a central core.
This is good, and maybe I can lead into some more of this because there's been some more contact with...
Good.
That. Okay, what we did is some of the Basque were really like crazy, and some of them wanted to be actually lowered into the hole, and that's after we brought that burning ice up to the ground.
Yeah.
And I said that, hey, you don't want to do this. You don't want to send a human being down there. So they decided to lower sheep.
Yeah.
And they winched the sheep. Well, I don't want to get into the grisly details, but the sheep goes into the hole.
Right.
Goes down 1,000 feet. Bring the sheep up. Sheep is dead. Cut into the sheep. They find this huge tumor-looking sort of thing inside of it. These guys are used to eviscerating sheep, and they know this doesn't belong in there. They cut it open, and there's this thing that it's alive inside. It looks like a baby seal.
Yeah.
Like you see at the aquarium, a pinniped, a baby seal. That's what it looks like. But the eyes are so odd. We're all described as the same thing. It looked like it had eyes of a human being. You look at a seal, picture of a seal, and it's got these black eyes.
Right.
This thing had like human-looking eyes.
Oh, man.
Okay, and we had experiences with it. I won't go into the whole thing, but what has happened here is that I have been told that the Basque have seen the same creature again and again, and they've had many experiences with I'm going to call it the seal creature. Now, you had a guy on your show, I'm told is red elk or red something.
Red elk, yes.
And he talked about these things. They're called rock flyers. And that's what he described them at. But he described these seals. He's like a Native Indian, kind of a Native American sort of guy.
Yes.
And he described these things as being rock flyers.
Well, that's an interesting name for them, rock flyers.
And he said these creatures that live down in the earth, but what I'm getting is the sense that they not only live in the earth, but they inhabit like different earths, and they are able to move between them.
It's also possible, Mel, it's crossed my mind, that very, very deep within the earth, there might even be a different set of laws of physics that might begin to a reality that you would live with, and maybe that's why you're getting such weird things up out of these holes.
Well, if I'm pulling up ice that keeps burning, and it's not cold, and I mean, something
sounds like a different kind of physics
going on here. If we've got this metal color that you cannot see from a certain distance and no longer registers on the mind or in the eye or in the retina, that's strange. I'll tell you something. Remember I told you I was given a replacement to the 1943 Roosevelt dime? Yes,
I recall.
After I was told about this thing here, and I tried to take pictures of it, believe me. Actually, I can't do any of that stuff. My nephew does. But this is what I discovered after I told that they couldn't see the the flange from a certain distance.
Mm-hmm.
If I stand 15 feet away from the dime, I can no longer see it. I can see the holder. I've got it in a plastic, like lucite holder. I can see the holder, and I can see straight through it. Then I walk towards it, and all of a sudden, the dime inside the holder materializes. That's what it's like. So I assume that if I wasn't able to photograph or not able to scan it, and believe me, my nephew, he did everything he could to produce an image of this dime.
Right.
He could not do it. I'm holding it right in my hand as we speak. I still have it.
But you can't take a photograph of it.
I can't even, when it's 15 feet away.
What about the hole in Nevada? What about the hole in Washington?
Well, now, I've not been to the site of the hole, and I could assure you at this point that the hole in Washington it's probably been re-landscaped over there. So
but the hole in Nevada
is still there as it was when I was there. It's out there in plain view.
Well, we need some photographs. We really need some photographs.
Well, I am going to communicate with the Basque out there and say, look, why don't we just have people come out there, find out where it is. From my standpoint, this stuff sounds dangerous. And you know, I was telling you about how they hauled away this wood stove that had a bucket of ice in it and how heavy it became.
Right.
Are you familiar with any of the works by Kurt Vonnegut?
Of course.
Okay, he wrote a book called Cat's Cradle, and in that book, Cat's Cradle, there was a substance in there, fictional substance, called Ice-9. And Ice-9 was developed for the military, fictional, so that the people, the biggest scourge to the military is mud. So they developed this substance that could pour in the mud, and it would solidify the mud.
Huh.
And the problem with it, though, is that it would keep on solidifying all of the water out there as far as it could reach, and eventually it would destroy the planet if it continued to solidify. It absorbs all of the water. Well, scientists have actually speculated.
Is it something biological? I mean, I can't imagine.
I don't know.
Because it's hard to imagine what else could continue to proliferate unless it was some sort of biological agent. I know they have biological agents that clean up oil spills.
Yeah.
You know, they created creatures that eat oil.
I haven't thought of that. I never thought of this as a living thing. I always thought of it as a physical, chemical phenomenon.
Well, living things would be the one category that could continue to proliferate.
Anyway, this Ice-9 in fiction does that. It can literally attach itself to all the water and render it impossible to deal with. I mean, it would be no longer water. You can imagine a world without water.
Yeah, of course.
Well, scientists have speculated. You can go on the Internet and search for, like, Ice-9.
Yes.
And there are scientists that actually believe that something like Ice-9 can exist. They actually believe that it is possible to accomplish something like the fictional Ice-9.
Well, that's why I kept saying, what about a different set of laws of physics inside the Earth? Obviously, something about the deep Earth, Mel, is very different than what we have here.
The whole new set of laws are down there that are going on. But this burning ice has been a great, huge source of concern for all the people that I talk to, you know, and then I'm not a military, whatever they worded down there, that went to the.
So you have no idea who has it now?
No, they took it away, and that was the report that I got. And excuse me. Anyway, I wanted to get back to the actual hole over there in
yes.
in your state, and I told you about the helicopters that routinely fly over there, and apparently no one has been molested over there that is encamped around the hole. But the Basque that are there have told me that they receive visits from the seal-like creature.
Now recalling for everybody, the creature went back down the hole.
I actually took this and put him on the flange.
Right.
And he just dived in to the hole.
Like a seal into the water.
Exactly. Yeah, precisely like that. And what I have been told is that the Basque have found a way of communicating with the seal, because it comes up regularly now. It's like a regular visitor. And what they did, and I don't know how they decided to do this, but the seal speaks to them through one of their boom boxes. So here you got the seal that's sitting there on the flange.
Mel, do you realize how crazy
look.
this sounds?
I was crazy sounding from the first day.
Yeah, well, you have a point, Mel. But I mean, the seal, or whatever in God's name this is,
can communicate to them
through a boombox.
Through the radio on the boombox. That is, I don't know how it does it. I don't have any idea of how radio works. Okay.
Well,
I mean, you're the radio guy.
It receives radio frequency.
That's
so
right.
The implication would be this creature is capable of radiating some sort of modulated radio frequency, and that's how it would happen.
I mean, I always heard these tales of like people hearing like radio in their tooth fillings.
Oh no, it's true.
And wire fences really out on the range.
It's all true.
You know, and so I don't know, but anyway, they have been communicating with them, and one of them was actually smart enough to press the record button on the boombox.
Good move.
Yeah. He did, but this is what happened when he played it back.
Yes.
It sounded like I've listened to the shortwave radio before.
Yes.
But it sounded like that intermodulation that you get between it's a series of chirps and bloops and bleeps and things like that.
Oh, yes.
That's what was recorded.
Oh, isn't that
bloops and bleeps and stuff. That's all that was on a tape. I used to like those bloops and bleeps because they used to help me sleep. You know, I would turn it in between like a shortwave channel.
Do you have that recording?
I don't have it handy, but
you have it.
Yeah, but it sounds exactly like that. The bloops and bleeps you get between some of the shortwave radio stations.
Wow.
Exactly. I have no idea, but they were hearing this, speaking to them in the language they understood, and so they talk about it. And again, I wasn't there, okay, but I don't think these guys, the Basque, are pulling my leg. They're not that kind of guy. They might be crazy enough to want to go into a hole.
Well, crazy as it may sound, it's not really crazy based on your own first-hand experience with the holes, now, is it?
No, it isn't.
If you take one context as a reality, then you can. It seems to me it shouldn't be that hard for you to accept their word on what's happened here.
Right. And so, in that sense, but I'm also describing this to many, probably millions of people, I assume.
Probably, yes.
And what I was told is that that these creatures inhabit the Earth, and they inhabit the other spaces, linked and not linked together, and they're communicating through the radio to them is what's occurring, and they do receive visitations from the seal creature from time to time.
Well, I already like these little guys. If they use radio, they're my...
Are they your kind of people there?
Gotcha.
Okay, now the Basque were warned about the ice that we sent down.
What kind of warning?
They said from the seal creatures that the ice can and would destroy the world in a very little amount of time. This stuff is too dangerous to fool around with. You don't have any way...
It's not supposed to be up here.
...of understanding how this works, even though it is so tempting that all of a sudden in a bucket of ice, I've got what seems to be an unimaginable source of power. An inexhaustible source of power, apparently. But I can't imagine if it's being inexhaustible if it's getting heavier and it's absorbing water. I mean, that to me doesn't sound like, so I think that stuff that was down there really is truly dangerous if not contained properly, is my feeling on that there. And then that's the warnings that they were giving, is that the world would be destroyed by the improper use of the ice. But they anticipate that greedy and undisciplined use of the ice will probably occur in this world.
Greedy and undisciplined?
Disciplined use of the ice.
It's an interesting phrase.
Yeah. In fact, that's what was quoted to me, that term, greedy and undisciplined.
Well, the world is looking, for new power sources. Anything that burns, Mel, and changes its own weight in that manner has a great deal of power.
This kind of reminds me of something. We're a fossil fuel-based economy, right? And we've been using oil for the last 150 years. You know, crude oil, petroleum.
Long time.
Before that, the oil that we used was whale oil, and some of the most famous whalers in the world were the Basque.
That's true.
Now, I told you some time ago that there was a whale bone, and it's stuck in a tree in Ellensburg.
You know, I remember that.
And I've been told by the Basque that they left that there, that they were Basque in the area of the Washington Hole, and they left that whale bone there kind of as a marker. That's all I want to say about that, but that's what I've been told.
Do you think that somehow those beneath ground understood something about what we needed? Or what they thought we needed?
Well, I'll tell you this much, because there were other things that were said that, and this might explain some things to you, but, you know, we talked about the greedy and undisciplined use of the ice, and they said that these seal creatures, they can travel between these worlds, and that there are other people in the other worlds that have designs on this world because this world is in pretty good shape. There are some people out there in other worlds that are similar to ours, but their world is so horrible.
Well, our world is at least above ground.
Yeah, but their world is so horrible that if we had suffered a nuclear holocaust on this world, they would be happy to inhabit it. There are people there, and what they were told is there are other worlds similar to ours that have designs on this world, and that they monitor what happens on this world. And they
listen to me now. We're almost out of time, Mel. Anything critical to get out?
Just that they are looking at our conditions, and they are saying, hey, the world that is the Earth that we know is on a collision course to disaster, and a lot of them think this is good, that then when we're gone, they can come here, and they think they're smart enough to use the ice that's here. That's the word I'm getting. Okay, I'm not a prophet. I'm not anything. I'm just
was reporting. The implication in that the ice was rare even to them?
The ice is rare, but it is when it's discovered, it's almost always improperly used. That no one has had the smartness. Now these seal creatures.
Implication being there's been other pieces of this above ground.
In other similar situations there that have been used. And maybe it's been that some of this has surfaced in one of these holes, and you were saying maybe that's how these holes are formed.
Yeah.
Any number of those things.
All right, listen to me, my friend. We've got to go.
That's fine.
I want you to tell me, swear to me that you'll get hold of some people at the University of Washington.
I will.
Or wherever, and proceed with this, will you?
Talk to the Basque. I think they're thinking along my way. They have no real vested interest.
All right, I'm going to look for that to happen, Mel. You take care, my friend.
Thank you very much.